Hi everybody, my name is Maciej Raszplewicz and I am a co-founder of DevOpsBox. My presentation is a part of the platform tech track and it will be about Kubernetes. If it is the best choice for your internal developer platform, I will compare AWS EKS, which is Elastic Kubernetes Service, with AWS ECS Fargate, which is Elastic Container Service. Briefly about me. I have over 15 years of experience in IT. I've been working in multiple roles. What is the most important for this presentation, I have experience in both AWS EKS and ECS. Recently, few years ago, we decided to start DevOpsBox, which is an implementation of internal developer platform, ready to use. But we hope it will become a framework on top of which you will be able to build your own internal developer platform. The agenda for today. I will start with a few words about AWS EKS and ECS Fargate. Then I will go into the comparison. Then I will sum up a few important things. And I have a question for you. About AWS EKS. It was launched in 2018. But it is a Kubernetes as a service, and Kubernetes itself was launched in 2014. Kubernetes is open source, it is the most popular container orchestrator now. It is very powerful, but in my opinion it is even more complex. There is a thing called AWS EKS Fargate. It allows you to run your container instances on Kubernetes without maintaining your own instances, without maintaining your virtual machines. But it's quite limited. For example, it doesn't support demo sets, so I will not tell more about it in my presentation. AWS ECS Elastic Container Service was launched in 2014, but then you had to maintain your own instances, maintain your EC2 virtual machines. And in 2017, AWS launched Fargate, which is a game changer in my opinion. It allows you to run your containers without maintaining instances. You just tell AWS, hey, I want to run this container, and it does it for you. It is AWS only. It is quite popular, maybe not as popular as Kubernetes, but still quite popular. And I think it's powerful enough for most of the use cases. And it is very simple. And now the comparison. I will start with features that are not available at ECS Fargate. They are more Kubernetes only. First of all, stateful apps. You cannot deploy stateful apps in your ECS Fargate, but in Kubernetes you can. You can use stateful sets and you can connect your Elastic Block Store disk to your pods or other disks in other clouds. There is also no such thing as demo sets in ECS Fargate, but they are not that required there. Kubernetes also has kubectl, which is a quite nice command line tool. You can use Istio with Kubernetes, which is a service mesh. It's a quite powerful and complicated tool. For example, it allows you to encrypt your app-to-app communication, but I will not tell more about it. It's a completely different topic. And Kubernetes is also extensible, so you can create your own custom resources. But there are two main issues with Kubernetes. First is resource management. If you want to deploy your app into the Kubernetes cluster, you usually write a YAML file. It seems to be simple at the beginning, but if you want to do it right, it can become as big as few hundreds of lines because you have to take care of resource management, security and more things. And then when you have this YAML file or more YAML files, you will have to use a tool to deploy it to your cluster, probably Helm or Customize, they are most popular. And also you will need another tool, Infrastructure as Code, which will create your infrastructure, for example, the cluster itself or some databases. On the ECS Fargate side, you can create all the resources, all the cloud resources and the application deployment using your favorite infrastructure as code tool, for example Terraform, CloudFormation or Pulumi. Pulumi is my favorite. And it's much simpler than in Kubernetes. The second problem with Kubernetes is all the do-it-yourself. If you want to run your apps in Kubernetes cluster, you will probably have to install a lot of tools to support it. I will focus only on the log aggregation, but it is only an example. There are many more do-it-yourselves. If you want to create a log aggregation solution for your Kubernetes cluster, first you have to choose the right stack. It can be FluentD with Elasticsearch and Kibana. It can be FluentD with AWS CloudWatch. It can be Grafana Loki and probably others. Then when you choose the right one, you have to install it, maintain it, upgrade and patch in case of any vulnerabilities. On the ECS Fargate side, you just have to configure streaming your logs to CloudWatch, and then you can watch it in CloudWatch logs or CloudWatch logs inside. Okay, maybe it's not the best solution for your log aggregation, but it is out of the box and provided by AWS. There are many more do-it-yourselves in Kubernetes. Log aggregation is just an example. You will have to take care of monitoring, distributed tracing, incoming network traffic called ingress. Auto-scaling can be quite complicated. If you want to reduce your costs, you can use spot instances, but you will have to configure it yourself. You will have to take care of UI, network security, access control, and probably more. The problem is, you have to install them, maintain, upgrade, and patch in case of any vulnerabilities. When it comes to ECS Fargate, it's simpler because most of the tools are AWS provided and AWS takes care of them for you. Few words about costs. EKS can be quite expensive at a small scale because you have to pay for the cluster itself, you have to pay for all the instances on top of which you will be running all the do-it-yourselves. And when it comes to Fargate, at a small scale it can be much cheaper because you have to pay only for the network things like night gateway, you have to pay for the load balancers, and all the other services are pay-as-you-go in AWS. But when it comes to a big scale, costs can be quite nicely optimized in Kubernetes because you can use, for example, over-provisioning or some nice auto-scaling features. Now the most important thing, which is security. If you run your apps on Kubernetes, you will have to take care of operating system of the instances. You will have to secure it, patch it in case of any vulnerabilities. The same is with Docker. And if you run your apps on root in the containers, you will have some security risks. This is not the case on ECS Fargate because each app is run in a tiny virtual machine thanks to a technology called Firecracker. So each app is isolated from another. And if an attacker takes control over your app, it doesn't mean he will take control of another app. And also in Kubernetes, you have to take care of security of all of the installed tools, which is not the case in ECS Fargate, because most of the tools are AWS provided. The summary. Okay, cloud vendor lock-in is very high in ECS Fargate because you are using AWS services. But in EKS, you will probably use some AWS specific features like security groups for pods. So there is also some cloud vendor lock-in. And isn't Kubernetes itself a vendor lock-in? Just asking. The overall complexity, which means the deployment and maintenance cost, in my opinion, is very high in Kubernetes and quite low in ECS Fargate. The infrastructure costs at small scale, it's quite high in Kubernetes and low in ECS Fargate, but at very big scale it can be low in Kubernetes because of all the optimizations you can do. For example, do the over provisioning. But it's also not that expensive to use ECS Fargate. There are also some optimizations, like for example spots. When it comes to features, okay, Kubernetes is very powerful, but I think for the most of the use cases, ECS Fargate is enough. The last, but the most important thing, security. It's very hard to secure Kubernetes cluster, and I think the effort is very high, and it's quite low in ECS Fargate because it's simple and you are using all the AWS services. In my opinion, if you want to run a Kubernetes cluster, you will need a team or teams of engineers to install everything, to maintain it. And it's not the case of Fargate, which is much simpler. You can even simplify things using a ready-to-use internal developer platform in both cases. And at the end, we just want to run our applications, and the solution, in my opinion, should be as simple as possible. If you have any questions, I'm available today on the Platform Tech channel on Slack, and I have a question for you. What about other clouds? Is Kubernetes as complicated as in AWS? Thank you for your attention, and I invite you to visit our website DevOpsBox.io.